Eleanor Warren was the kind of woman people both admired and envied. A titan of the tech industry, she had built her empire from the ground up, transforming a scrappy startup into a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. Her name was synonymous with innovation, her face a regular feature on magazine covers. Her home life, at least outwardly, mirrored her professional success. A sprawling estate in the Hamptons, a devoted husband, Adam, who had stood by her during her rise to fame, and a close-knit team of executives she called her second family. But Eleanor was no stranger to the complexities of human nature. Her success wasn't just the result of her work ethic, it was her ability to read people, to sift through their words and actions like data points until their true intentions were laid bare. Still, even she had blind spots. The morning began like so many others, with the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafting through their sunlit kitchen. Adam sat across from her, scrolling on his phone, his easy smile a constant reassurance in Eleanor's chaotic life. "Big plans today?" he asked, glancing up. "Investor calls and prep for the gala tonight," Eleanor replied, taking a sip of her coffee. "What about you? Another run?" Adam nodded, gesturing to his neatly folded running gear. "Still training for that charity marathon next month." He smiled, but something about his tone felt, subtle. Barely perceptible. Eleanor dismissed the thought. After all, Adam had always been a creature of routine, his morning runs of sacred ritual. Still, the nagging feeling lingered as she drove into the city. By mid-afternoon, Eleanor was buried in a spreadsheet of quarterly projections when her assistant Leah knocked softly on the door. "The caterer just called," Leah began, looking unusually hesitant. "They said Mr. Warren confirmed a private tasting tomorrow at the Belmont Bistro." Eleanor frowned, setting aside her work. "I didn't know Adam was planning something. Are you sure it wasn't for the gala?" Leah hesitated. "No, ma'am. They were explicit that it's just for 2 people. I thought you'd want to know." A flicker of unease passed through Eleanor. Adam had mentioned nothing about a tasting, and the Belmont wasn't their usual venue. She dismissed Leah with a nod, her focus fractured for the rest of the afternoon. At the gala that evening, Eleanor was at her best, poised, charismatic, effortlessly commanding the room. Adam stood by her side, the picture of a supportive spouse. Yet, as the evening wore on, Eleanor noticed his attention drift. He checked his phone frequently, offering excuses to step away, each absence gnawing at her unease. Later that night, as they drove home, Eleanor finally broke the silence. "You seem distracted tonight." Adam glanced at her, his expression neutral. "Just tired. Long run this morning." Eleanor's instincts, honed from years of negotiation and boardroom battles, told her there was more to the story. Yet she said nothing, choosing instead to catalogue his every word, every pause, every flicker of his gaze. The next morning, while Adam laced up his running shoes and headed out, Eleanor's curiosity got the better of her. She accessed the GPS tracker she'd installed in his car months ago, a precaution she had justified as a safety measure given his late-night drives. The route showed him stopping at a café downtown, far from his usual running trail. Her mind raced as she opened her laptop, pulling up security footage from the café. Technology, after all, was her domain. A few keystrokes later, grainy footage appeared on her screen. She watched as Adam entered the café, his casual jogger's attire at odds with his clandestine demeanor. Moments later, a woman joined him, a face Eleanor recognized all too well, Sofia Rivera. Eleanor's former protégé and now one of her company's fiercest competitors. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was professional. Eleanor's chest tightened, a cold, calculated rage settling over her. For now, she'd keep this discovery to herself. Confrontation could wait. She needed time to unravel the threads of their deception. to find out just how deep this betrayal ran. As the sun rose higher, Eleanor sat at the edge of her bed, her mind racing. Adam and Sophia thought they were clever, but they had underestimated the one thing that had built Eleanor's empire, her ability to anticipate every move. This wasn't just about a husband's infidelity. It was war. Eleanor's discovery sat heavy on her chest, like a stone pressing down with every breath she took. She replayed the cafe footage over and over, scrutinizing every detail, the way Adam leaned in just a little too close, the way Sophia smiled at him, her hand brushing against his arm as if they shared a secret. Eleanor's mind churned, trying to piece together the extent of their betrayal. Was it a fleeting affair, or did it run deeper, intertwining her personal and professional worlds in a web she hadn't seen coming? By mid-morning, her instincts kicked in. She wasn't one to act on emotion, no matter how raw or intense. This required strategy. Eleanor needed to know more before she made her move. She sat at her window with her head set. She reached for her phone and dialed the number of a trusted ally, Marcus Kane, a private investigator she'd worked with in the past. "Marcus, it's Eleanor," she said, her tone clipped but steady. "I need you on something discreet. Start with my husband Adam and Sophia Rivera. I'll send you what I have so far." "Understood," Marcus replied without hesitation. "How deep do you want me to dig, until there's nothing left to uncover?" With that, Eleanor hung up and focused her attention on her day. She threw herself into meetings, presentations, and calls, masking her inner turmoil with the same composure that had made her a formidable CEO. But beneath the surface, her thoughts simmered. She couldn't stop replaying the little moments she'd overlooked. Adam's sudden interest in early morning runs, his growing distance, the nights he claimed to be working late. How long had this been going on? And why Sophia, of all people? That evening, Eleanor arrived home to find Adam in the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of wine. He greeted her with a warm smile as though nothing had changed. "Hey, how was your day?" he asked, his voice casual. She forced a smile. "Busy, as usual. You?" "Same. Got a good run-in this morning, though," he replied, taking a sip of wine. "Thinking of trying a new trail tomorrow. Change things up." Said Nick. Her stomach churned at the lie, but she maintained her facade. "Sounds like a good idea," she said, her voice steady. As the evening wore on, Eleanor observed him closely, noting every detail, the way he avoided eye contact when she mentioned work, the way he seemed a little too eager to retreat to his office after dinner. She'd always trusted Adam implicitly, but now she saw him in a new light. Every word and gesture laced with potential deceit. The next morning, Eleanor set her plan into motion. While Adam left for his so-called run, she logged into the surveillance system she'd installed at the estate. Cameras dotted the property and monitored the driveway, ensuring she could track his comings and goings. Sure enough, his car left the property within minutes of him stepping out the door. Eleanor's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "He's at the cafe again. Same woman. Looks like they're getting comfortable." Her pulse quickened as she stared at the message. She'd half expected it, but seeing her suspicions confirmed still sent a jolt of anger through her. She couldn't confront him. Not yet. Not until she understood the full scope of their betrayal. Over the next few days, Marcus's investigation bore fruit. He provided Eleanor with detailed reports. Adam and Sophia met regularly, often at the cafe but sometimes in more secluded locations. They exchanged text messages and phone calls, their communication laced with terms that hinted at something more than a simple affair. Phrases like "the project" and "our plan" suggested a professional angle, one that concerned Eleanor deeply. The most damning piece of evidence came later in the week, a series of bank transactions linking Adam to Sophia's company. He'd been funneling money into her business for months, using accounts Eleanor hadn't even known he controlled. It wasn't just betrayal, it was collusion. Eleanor stared at the financial documents, her jaw tightening. This wasn't just about infidelity. Adam and Sophia were working together, leveraging her resources and connections for their own gain. The depth of their deception was staggering. Determined to uncover more, Eleanor decided to play the long game. She began attending meetings with Sophia under the guise of discussing potential partnerships between their companies. Her outward demeanor was as professional and polished as ever, but beneath the surface, she was studying Sophia, looking for cracks in her armor. The hour-long meeting lasted 2 hours. One such meeting stood out. It was held in Sophia's sleek downtown office, the walls lined with awards and framed articles celebrating her success. Eleanor sat across from her, maintaining a polite smile as they discussed potential collaborations. "You've done impressive work here," Eleanor said, gesturing to the awards. "It's no wonder you've been such a rising star in the industry." Sophia's smile was tight, her eyes flickering with something Eleanor couldn't quite place. "Coming from you, that means a lot," she replied. "I've always admired your ability to stay ahead of the curve." The words were meant as a compliment, but they rang hollow. Eleanor watched Sophia closely, noting the subtle shifts in her expression, the way she avoided direct eye contact when certain topics came up. It was as though she knew she was being scrutinized. After the meeting, Eleanor lingered, glancing around the office as if admiring the decor. She spotted a photograph on Sophia's desk, a candid shot of her laughing with Adam at what appeared to be a company event. The sight of it sent a fresh wave of anger coursing through Eleanor, but she kept her expression neutral. As the weeks went on, Eleanor continued to gather evidence. She worked closely with Marcus, digging into every corner of Adam and Sophia's lives. She uncovered emails, phone records, and more financial transactions, each piece adding to the puzzle. What emerged was a picture of two people who had not only betrayed her trust, but had conspired to undermine her professionally. Adam and Sophia had been siphoning resources from Eleanor's company, using insider knowledge to gain an edge in the market. It was a calculated, deliberate effort to weaken her position and strengthen their own. And yet, through it all, Adam came home every night, acting as though nothing was amiss. Eleanor's resolve hardened. She would not confront them in anger or desperation. That wasn't her style. Instead, she would use the very skills that had built her empire: strategy, precision, and patience. She began formulating a plan, one that would expose Adam and Sophia's betrayal while ensuring they paid the price for their actions. The first step was subtle. Eleanor began reallocating resources within her company, creating a paper trail that would point back to Adam's involvement with Sophia. She enlisted the help of a trusted team of lawyers and financial experts, ensuring every move was airtight. Next, she planted seeds of doubt within Sophia's organization, using her network of contacts to spread rumors about potential investigations and audits. It wasn't long before Sophia's investors began to grow wary, their confidence in her leadership shaken. Through it all, Eleanor maintained her composure, even as the tension in her home life grew. Adam seemed oblivious to her knowledge, continuing his charade with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. But Eleanor knew his days of deception were numbered. The stage was set. All that remained was the final act, the moment when Eleanor would bring their carefully constructed facade crashing down. And when that moment came, she would be ready to reclaim control, exact justice, and show Adam and Sophia that they had underestimated the wrong woman. Eleanor sat at her desk, the dim glow of her office lamp illuminating the mountain of evidence she had collected. She had laid her traps carefully, weaving a web of counter-deception that mirrored the one Adam and Sophia had spun. Now, it was time to pull the strings. But before striking, she needed one final confirmation, proof of their intent, captured in their own words. She decided to exploit their growing confidence. For weeks, Adam and Sophia had operated as though they were untouchable. Eleanor's restraint, her lack of confrontation, had emboldened them. It was time to turn their arrogance against them. That evening, she suggested to Adam over dinner that they host a dinner party for close friends and colleagues, a gesture of goodwill and unity in an industry that thrived on appearances. "We've been so busy lately," she said, swirling her wine glass, her voice carefully casual. "It would be nice to reconnect with everyone." Adam hesitated for a fraction of a second, barely perceptible, before nodding. "That sounds like a great idea. We could use some downtime." It was all the confirmation Eleanor needed. She knew Adam would seize the opportunity to coordinate with Sophia under the guise of planning the event. The party would be her stage, the moment where everything would unravel. "Enjoy your party." Over the next week, Eleanor orchestrated the event with meticulous precision. Invitations were sent to an exclusive list of guests, investors, board members, and a few hand-picked industry leaders who held sway over Sophia's business dealings. The dinner party was set to be a grand affair, hosted at the Warrens' sprawling estate. Every detail was calculated to maintain the illusion of normalcy. Meanwhile, Marcus delivered the final piece of the puzzle. Through a series of intercepted emails and phone calls, he had obtained a recording that revealed the depth of Adam and Sophia's conspiracy. The recording, a conversation between the two, was laced with damning admissions. "She doesn't suspect a thing," Adam's voice said, tinged with smugness. "By the time Eleanor realizes what's happening, she'll already be out of options." Sophia's laughter followed, sharp and confident. "We just need a few more weeks to finalize the transfer. Once it's done, she won't be able to touch us." Eleanor played the recording several times, her emotions shifting from heartbreak to cold determination. It wasn't just betrayal, it was premeditated destruction. They hadn't just taken advantage of her trust, they had sought to dismantle everything she had built. The night of the party arrived. Eleanor moved through the crowd with practiced grace, her smile bright, her demeanor unshakable. Adam, ever the attentive host, charmed the guests, his betrayal masked by an effortless facade. Sophia arrived late, dressed to perfection, her confidence radiating as she mingled with ease. Eleanor observed them from a distance, cataloging every glance, every shared smile. They were comfortable now, secure in their belief that their deception was impenetrable. But Eleanor had one final move to play. As dinner was served, Eleanor took her place at the head of the long, elegantly set table. The guests chatted amiably, the sound of clinking glasses and muted laughter filling the air. Adam sat to her right, Sophia a few seats down. It was the perfect setting, intimate yet formal, the kind of gathering where every word carried weight. Eleanor tapped her glass, the soft chime silencing the room. She rose to her feet, her expression composed. "Thank you all for joining us tonight," she began, her voice warm yet commanding. "This gathering is a celebration, not just of friendship, but of trust, loyalty, and shared success. Values I hold dear, both personally and professionally." She let her words hang in the air for a moment, her gaze sweeping the table. Adam smiled at her, oblivious, while Sophia shifted slightly in her seat, her composure faltering for the briefest moment. "But," Eleanor continued, her tone sharpening ever so slightly, "as many of you know, trust can be a fragile thing. It requires transparency and integrity to thrive. And when it's betrayed, well, the consequences can be devastating." A murmur rippled through the room, the atmosphere suddenly charged. Adam's smile wavered, and Sophia's eyes narrowed, her instincts kicking in. Eleanor reached for a small remote hidden beneath the table. With the press of a button, the large screen at the far end of the dining room flickered to life. The guests turned their attention to the screen as an audio recording began to play. The room fell silent as Adam's voice filled the air. "She doesn't suspect a thing. By the time Eleanor realizes what's happening, she'll already be out of options." The color drained from Adam's face as the recording continued, each word driving another nail into the coffin of his deceit. Sophia's expression turned to stone, her polished facade crumbling as the weight of the evidence bore down on her. When the recording ended, Eleanor stood in silence, letting the gravity of the revelation sink in. The guests exchanged shocked glances, their murmurs growing louder. Adam stammered, his confidence shattered. "Eleanor, I can explain." "Explain?" Eleanor's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Explain how you conspired with her to siphon money from my company, or how you plan to undermine me professionally while parading as my devoted husband," she said. Her face reduced extremely. Sophia tried to speak, but Eleanor silenced her with a withering glance. "Don't bother, Sophia. The evidence is all here. Every email, every transaction, every whispered conversation. You both thought you were clever, but you forgot who you were dealing with." Eleanor turned to the guests, her tone shifting to one of command. "Let this serve as a warning to anyone who thinks betrayal comes without consequences. I built my empire on more than innovation. I built it on resilience, and I don't take kindly to being underestimated." As the room buzzed with shock and whispers, Eleanor's lawyer, seated quietly at the far end of the table, stood and approached her. "The documents are ready," he said, handing her a folder. Eleanor opened it and pulled out a set of papers. She turned to Adam, her voice cold and resolute. "Consider this your formal notification of divorce. And as for you, Sophia," Eleanor's gaze burned with unyielding intensity, "your investors have been alerted. Your company's accounts are frozen, pending investigation. You'll find that betrayal, like ambition, comes at a price. Exit checkout." Sophia's face twisted in fury, but she said nothing. Adam, defeated, slumped in his chair, his head in his hands. Eleanor remained standing, her presence commanding. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I believe this dinner is over." As the guests filed out, many of them offering murmured words of support or respect, Eleanor stood by the door, her expression unyielding. Marcus, who had been quietly observing from the sidelines, approached her with a small nod. "You handled that brilliantly." Eleanor allowed herself a faint smile. "It's not over yet. There's still work to be done." She stood, opening the door to her right, and stepped out. She turned to look out at the night sky, her mind already shifting to the future. Adam and Sophia had tried to dismantle her life, but they had only succeeded in strengthening her resolve. Justice had been served, but Eleanor knew that deception often left lingering shadows. She would remain vigilant, ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. Because if this ordeal had taught her anything, it was this: Eleanor Warren was unbreakable. The night after the dinner party was eerily quiet. The echoes of her confrontation still lingered in Eleanor's mind as she sat in her study, staring out the window at the sprawling estate she had once considered a haven. The betrayal, though exposed, still felt raw. Yet Eleanor didn't allow herself to dwell on the pain. Instead, she focused on what lay ahead, rebuilding her legacy and ensuring that Adam and Sophia faced the full weight of their actions. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was Marcus. She picked up immediately, her voice steady. "What do you have?" "I've dug deeper into Sophia's financials and found something interesting," Marcus began. "She's been using a network of shell companies to divert funds, not just from your business, but from other investors. It's fraud on a large scale. She's been overextending her assets to prop up her company, which is why she needed Adam's help." Eleanor's grip on the phone tightened. "And Adam?" A few seconds passed. She tried again. Marcus hesitated before answering. "He's been complicit, but it looks like he's also been manipulated. Sophia used their affair to control him, dangling promises of a share in her company if they could pull this off. She played him just as much as he betrayed you." Eleanor's jaw clenched. It didn't absolve Adam of his actions, but it added a new layer to the narrative. Sophia had been the mastermind, but Adam's weakness had made it all possible. Eleanor's focus sharpened. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about dismantling Sophia's entire operation and ensuring Adam faced the consequences of his betrayal. "Send me everything you have," Eleanor said, her tone decisive. "I'm going to make sure they both pay for this." Over the next few weeks, Eleanor began the painstaking process of reclaiming her position. She convened her executive team, carefully explaining the situation while maintaining an air of control. Transparency was key to keeping her team's trust, but she kept the most damning details private. The last thing she needed was gossip that could tarnish her company's reputation further. "Moving forward, we're implementing stricter oversight on all financial operations," Eleanor announced during a board meeting. "I'll personally review all major transactions until we've stabilized. Trust is earned, not given, and I intend to ensure that this company remains untouchable." The room buzzed with agreement, her team visibly rallying behind her. Eleanor knew that leadership wasn't just about decisions. It was about inspiring confidence even in the face of adversity. She had been betrayed, yes, but she refused to let it define her. Meanwhile, she worked with Marcus and her legal team to build a case against Sophia. Using the evidence they had gathered, Eleanor filed a lawsuit accusing Sophia of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to undermine her business. The legal action sent shockwaves through the industry, tarnishing Sophia's reputation almost overnight. The media caught wind of the lawsuit, and soon articles began to circulate about Sophia's alleged misconduct. Investors withdrew their support, leaving her company on the brink of collapse. Eleanor watched the fallout with a mixture of satisfaction and resolve. This was only the beginning. Adam, on the other hand, had retreated into the shadows. After the dinner party, he had moved out of the estate and into a small apartment in the city. Eleanor's divorce proceedings were swift and ruthless. Her lawyers ensured that Adam walked away with nothing more than what he had brought into the marriage. The estate, the assets, even the car he had been driving. Everything reverted to Eleanor. An evening, Adam called her. Eleanor stared at the phone for a moment before answering, her voice cold. "What do you want?" I wanted to apologize," Adam began, his voice trembling. "I made a mistake, Eleanor. I let Sophia manipulate me. I thought I was helping us, that maybe we could—" "Don't," Eleanor interrupted, her tone sharp. "Don't try to rewrite history, Adam. You didn't just make a mistake, you made a choice. A choice to betray me, to conspire against me. Whatever Sophia did, you were a willing participant." "I wasn't thinking clearly," Adam said, his desperation palpable. "I thought—" Eleanor cut him off again. "You thought you could get away with it, that I wouldn't notice, but you underestimated me, Adam, just like Sophia did, and now you're both paying the price." There was a long silence on the other end of the line before Adam finally spoke. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "for everything." "Nah," she said quickly. "There are so many." Eleanor's voice softened, but only slightly. "I don't need your apology. I need you to take responsibility for your actions. That's the only way you'll ever move forward." Frowning, Eleanor said. She hung up without waiting for a response, her heart heavy but resolute. Adam's regret meant nothing to her now. The damage had been done, and she had no intention of looking back. As the months passed, Eleanor's life slowly began to regain its equilibrium. Her company, once shaken by the betrayal, emerged stronger than ever. Investors praised her resilience, and her team rallied around her, inspired by her determination. The lawsuit against Sophia proceeded, with more evidence surfacing that implicated her in additional schemes. The legal battles were draining, but Eleanor faced them head-on, her resolve unshakable. In her personal life, Eleanor found solace in small, meaningful moments: morning walks along the estate grounds, quiet evenings with a book, and the unwavering support of close friends. She had learned to guard her trust more carefully, But she hadn't let the betrayal harden her completely. Instead, she used it as a lesson, a reminder of her own strength and resilience. One evening, as she stood on the balcony overlooking her estate, Eleanor reflected on everything she had endured. The pain, the anger, the sense of betrayal. It had all shaped her, forcing her to confront her vulnerabilities and emerge stronger. She was no longer the same woman she had been before Adam and Sophia's betrayal. She was sharper, more cautious, but also more determined than ever to protect what she had built. The final blow to Sophia came unexpectedly. One of her former employees, disgruntled and seeking retribution, leaked confidential documents to the press. The documents revealed not only Sophia's financial misdeeds, but also her unethical business practices, including backdoor deals and violations of industry regulations. The revelations destroyed what little credibility Sophia had left, leaving her business in ruins. Eleanor read the news with a sense of vindication. She had orchestrated much of Sophia's downfall, but this final twist had come from an unexpected source. It was a reminder that sometimes justice had a way of finding its mark on its own. As for Adam, he disappeared from the public eye, his reputation irreparably damaged. Eleanor heard rumors that he had moved to another state, seeking a fresh start. She didn't care to know the details. His chapter in her life was closed. The next day she took her daughter to the beach and propped them on the sand. Months later, at a charity gala where she was the guest of honor, Eleanor stood before a crowd of industry leaders and philanthropists. She spoke about resilience, about the importance of integrity, and about the power of rebuilding after betrayal. Her words resonated deeply, not just because of her experiences, but because of the strength she exuded. As the applause filled the room, Eleanor felt a sense of closure. She had reclaimed her life, her legacy, and her sense of self. The betrayal had tested her, but it hadn't broken her. And in the end, she had emerged victorious, not just over Adam and Sophia, but over the darkness they had brought into her life. Eleanor Warren was unshakable, and now the world knew it too. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Eleanor sat in the front row, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. On her left was her lawyer, a sharp and seasoned litigator who had been instrumental in her victory. On her right, an empty chair, a deliberate choice, symbolizing the void left by betrayal. Sofia Rivera stood before the judge, her once bright aura now dimmed by months of relentless legal battles and public scrutiny. The court's decision was as decisive as Eleanor had hoped: guilty of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. Sophia was sentenced to years in prison, and her company was ordered to pay hefty fines, effectively dismantling what remained of her empire. Eleanor didn't smile as the verdict was delivered. It wasn't triumph she felt, but a deep sense of closure. The weight she had carried for months, through sleepless nights, relentless media attention, and moments of private doubt, lifted. Justice had been served, and with it came the opportunity to fully move forward. The weeks that followed brought Eleanor a rare sense of peace. With Sophia's downfall and the divorce finalized, she refocused her energy on her company, her team, and herself. She implemented sweeping reforms to prevent future betrayals, creating a culture of transparency and accountability. Her leadership wasn't just respected now, it was revered. Employees marveled at her ability to turn adversity into strength, and her reputation as a resilient, uncompromising leader became the stuff of legend. But Eleanor wasn't content to simply rebuild. She wanted to innovate, to push her company into new territories. The betrayal had taught her that complacency was dangerous. She initiated bold new projects, investing in cutting-edge technologies and expanding into untapped markets. Her instincts, honed by the challenges she had faced, led to groundbreaking successes. Eleanor's personal life, too, underwent a transformation. She surrounded herself with people who shared her values, trustworthy friends, loyal colleagues, and mentors who had guided her in her early days. She kept her circles small but strong, valuing depth over breadth. While she remained guarded, she refused to let cynicism take root. Her belief in integrity endured, tempered by hard-earned wisdom. One rainy afternoon, Eleanor found herself walking through a gallery in the city, seeking solace in art. The quiet space, filled with paintings and sculptures, offered a kind of serenity she hadn't realized she needed. As she wandered, her eyes fell on a sculpture, a striking piece made of fractured glass, its shards catching the light in a way that created a mosaic of brilliance. The placard read, "Resilience, Beauty in the Broken." Eleanor stood before it for a long time, reflecting on how the piece mirrored her own journey. She, too, had been broken, fractured by betrayal. But like the sculpture, she had found a way to take those pieces and create something stronger, more beautiful. She reached out and scraped a line down it that marked a shift in perspective. The man approached her, his voice soft. "It's a powerful piece, isn't it?" Eleanor turned to see an artist with paint-splattered hands and a kind smile. They struck up a conversation, discussing art, resilience, and the ability to find meaning in adversity. For the first time in months, Eleanor felt herself open up, not as a CEO or a public figure, but as a person simply seeking connection. Meanwhile, Adam's life had taken a starkly different turn. Stripped of his wealth and influence, he had faded into obscurity. Rumors occasionally reached Eleanor, whispers of failed business ventures and half-hearted attempts at redemption. She didn't wish him harm, but neither did she spare him much thought. He had made his choices, and now he was living with the consequences. Eleanor's attention was elsewhere. She had become a sought-after speaker, invited to conferences and events to share her story. But she was selective about where she spoke, choosing platforms that aligned with her values. In her speeches, she focused on resilience, leadership, and the importance of integrity. She never named Adam or Sophia, preferring to let her lessons stand on their own. "Adversity doesn't define you," she said during one such event. "Your response to it does. Betrayal is painful, but it's also revealing. It shows you who you can trust, and more importantly, who you are. I've learned that every challenge is an opportunity to rebuild, not just what was lost, but something even greater." Thanks. The audience erupted in applause, her words resonating deeply. Eleanor had become more than a leader. She was a symbol of fortitude, a living testament to the power of perseverance. One evening, months after the courtroom victory, Eleanor stood on the balcony of her estate, a glass of wine in hand. The night was calm, the stars scattered across the sky like a reminder of infinite possibilities. She reflected on her journey, not just the pain and betrayal, but the growth, the triumphs, and the lessons. A sense of gratitude washed over her. Gratitude for the people who had stood by her, for the challenges that had tested her, and even for the betrayal that had forced her to confront her own resilience. She realized that she wasn't defined by what had happened to her, but by how she had risen above it. As she gazed at the horizon, her phone buzzed with a message from her assistant. It was a proposal for a new initiative, a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs designed to teach them not just business acumen, but also the importance of ethics and integrity. Eleanor smiled as she read the details. It was exactly the kind of legacy she wanted to leave, a legacy built on trust, resilience, and the belief that even in the face of betrayal, you could rise stronger than ever. The past was behind her now, its shadows receding into memory. Eleanor Warren was no longer a victim of betrayal or even a survivor of it. She was a creator, a builder, and above all, a force to be reckoned with. Her life was her own again, and she was ready for whatever came next.